What I'm going to share in this presentation is called How to Raise Private Money Without Ever Asking for Money. And what I want to share in this presentation, Kenner, to your subscribers, to your community, is actual real life actionable items that works. It's working today. It's been working for a very, very long time. And of course, I tweak it and change it as we go along, but I'm only going to share the steps as to how to do this, as to what has actually really worked for me and really worked for my community members as well.
If you're a real estate investor and are wondering how to raise and leverage private money to make more profit on every deal, then you're in the right place. On Raising Private Money, we'll speak with new and seasoned investors to dissect their deals and extract the best tips and strategies to help you get the money, because the money comes first. Now here's your host, Jay Conner.
Hey there, Kenneth French of Vast Voice, telling business secrets to entrepreneurs. We're very, very happy you stopped by. Either you're going to watch this or listen to this because you want to take your business to the next level. You're probably an entrepreneur who's either just starting out or you've been around for quite a while and you want to take your business to the next level. You're probably a real estate investor, maybe even a real estate agent, maybe a professional or of some sort, professional advisor of some sort. And well, you are stopping by because you need some valuable advice from one of the top industry leaders there is. Anyway, thank you very much. Once again, Kenneth French, Vast Voice, telling business secrets to entrepreneurs. Really glad you stopped by. Mr. or Mrs. Real Estate Entrepreneur, are you looking for money for real estate? Jay Conner is your man. Jay, I'm so glad we're chatting about this because this is going to put money in real estate investors' pockets. That's why you're here. Thanks for being here.
Absolutely, Kenner. Thank you so much for inviting me to come along and talk about the topic that I'm so excited and I'm so passionate about, that being private money to fund real estate deals. And the reason I'm so passionate about it is because private money has had more of an impact, made more of a difference in my real estate investing career ever since 2009 when I started doing it, beyond anything else that I've done.
I've talked to a couple of your clients, actually this guy named Ron LeGrand, who's kind of a famous investor, and he was talking about how good you are in the marketplace, helping people to get money. And really that's what real estate is about, is, well, hopefully amassing as much real estate and potentially using other people's money to amass a fortune. And who knows, maybe even provide money for future generations. I think it's unbelievable what you've done. I can say without a doubt, I know enough people who know you, you're the real deal with respect to real estate.
Well, I appreciate that, Kenner. Yeah, what I'm going to share in this presentation is called How to Raise Private Money Without Ever Asking for Money. And what I want to share in this presentation, Kenner, to your subscribers, to your community, is actual real life actionable items that works. It's working today. It's been working for a very, very long time. And of course, I tweak it and change it as we go along, but I'm only going to share the steps as to how to do this, as to what has actually really worked for me and really worked for my community members as well.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm going to ask of. And as you know, most of our people are real estate investors, they're entrepreneurs. Really, for the most part, they are, trying to get their business and real estate business or whatever, real estate investing business to kind of the next level. Maybe they're, they have a net worth of $1 million or maybe probably even higher, and they want to, get a bigger portfolio, and they don't want to have to ask or beg people for money. And that's why I think you're here. So why don't we get right to it? I'd love to see your presentation. I'm going to ask a bunch of questions. You know me, I'm an inquisitive guy. And by the way, my name is Kenneth French with vastsolutionsgroup.com. We have podcasts. We have a number of things out there that are for added value elements for real estate investors, and this is one of them. So please go ahead, share what you have and help the audience, the viewers, the listeners to, well, take their business to the next level.
Awesome. Well, Kenner, I am not the technological greasy monkey, if you know what I mean. So if you will let me know here in just a moment, if I am sharing my entire screen. And
I will. Looks like you're moving forward. Looks like you are sharing your screen. Now we see your whole screen, and now we see your presentation, How to Raise Private Money Without Asking for Money, by none other than Jay Conner.
Thank you, Kenner. Well, I'm gonna go ahead and jump in again, Kenner. Interrupt me anywhere, along the way here. And just for everyone that is watching and listening to this presentation, this content, I'm going to cover a lot of content, step by step, actionable items. And I'm going to anticipate we're going to go probably about 50 minutes or so, which will leave plenty of time for us to be done in less than an hour after Kenner, asked me any clarifying questions. And Kenner, by the way, if you have that compelling comment or question as I'm going through this presentation, feel free to interrupt me at any time, okay?
I will. Thank you very much. Because I think I'm going to try to represent myself just like I would if I were an audience member and ask questions. And by the way, you're not getting paid for this. I'm not getting paid for this. This is truly to add value to the listeners and viewers out there. So again, without further ado, please go ahead.
All right. Well, here we go. So hopefully, as you are watching and listening to this presentation, you're aware that you can write notes. So wherever you're taking your notes, go ahead and write down the title of this presentation, How to Raise Private Money Without Asking for Money. And you can put my name down there as well, Jay Connor, and I'm an E-R, not a O-R, Jayconner. And we'll go ahead and dive right in. But before we do, I just want to go ahead and let you know, for those of you that are listening in and watching, that this has got nothing to do about hard money. And by the way, some of my best friends on the planet are hard money lenders. And they've actually used my techniques that I'm going to share with you here in this presentation to raise private money from private investors to invest in their hard money fund. So in no way am I, talking down about hard money lenders. But when we talk about private money, what we're talking about is doing business with individuals just like you and me and Kenner that are loaning money, investing in your deals. They're loaning money on your deals either from their investment capital and or their retirement funds. So I just want to give you that background right there, where you're going to be doing business with individuals. So I'm going to show you in this presentation, first of all, how to never miss out on any deal due to having the lack of money. I'm going to show you the exact steps that you need to attract unlimited funding for your real estate deals. Now, when I say the word attract, that's a very, very important word, because in this world of getting private money and funding for your real estate deals, this has got nothing to do with begging or chasing or selling or trying to persuade or talk anybody into loaning you money. In fact, you're going to learn here in a moment exactly how I go about attracting the private money without ever asking anybody for money. I'm going to share with you here, step by step, the 5 steps on how to raise private money, first of all, from your own connections. I'm also going to show you how to attract funding from 3 different sources. So the question is, what are the different categories of private lenders, and where do you find these private lenders to fund your deals? I'm going to share that with you in this presentation. I'm also going to show you how to locate over 12,000 new private lenders every month that are from all across the nation. Well, what am I talking about there? Well, we have this proprietary software that's called the Private Lender Data Feed. We update it every month. And we actually get every private lender closing information in the nation with the private lender's contact information. We get the interest rate that they are being paid. And so that's a whole nother category right there of where you find private lenders. And I'm going to show you the 5 steps that I did that still work today as to how I raised $2,150,000 in new private money in less than 90 days of when I was cut off from the banks. Now, I'm also going to teach you the following 3 things. Now, I'm going to teach you in this presentation how to buy properties without using any of your own money. In fact, it gets better than that. I'm going to show you in this presentation how to always bring home a big check when you buy a property without ever taking any of your own money to the closing table. Here's the question. Who wants to get paid to buy properties?
Yeah,
right, Kenner?
Here, Kenner does.
Kenner wants to get paid to buy properties. So, I mean, not only in this world of raising private money and using private money for your real estate deals, you never have to take any of your own money to the closing table. All of these deals are essentially no down payment deals, and you're going to bring home a big check when you buy the property, and you're going to get multiple checks. I'm going to show you here how to get as much as 3 big checks on every transaction that you do when you're using private money. And I'm going to show you how to get all of your rehab money up front if a renovation is involved. Now, I'll say this again during the presentation, but it's so important. I want to say it right here. Private money is not only for rehabbing and renovations. Private money you're going to use whenever the seller, and I don't care if the seller is an institution, a bank owned property, or if the seller is a for sale by owner off market property, you're going to use private money when the seller requires all the cash. We'll dig into that a little bit deeper. Now, in case that you have to jump off early from this presentation, I don't want you to miss out because you are in Kenner French's world and in his community. You are going to get a big gift right here. You're being invited to the Private Money Conference, And as you can see here on the PowerPoint, it's October 8th, 9th, and 10th, right here in Eastern North Carolina. This Private Money Conference, there's not another event like it on the planet. The tickets for a person and a guest are typically and normally $2,997. And because you are here with Kenner French, you get to come for a measly $97 registration fee. So I'll talk more about the live event at the end of this presentation. But in case you got to jump off early, go ahead and take a picture right now of that QR code. In fact, take a picture of this entire PowerPoint slide. You got the URL down there at the bottom, go.jconner.com/VAST, VAST. And we'll talk more about it at the end of this presentation. But I didn't want anybody to miss out on this in case you got to jump off early.
And by the way, thank you. That's a big event. I've heard some of your events are, they're truly adding value to the audience. So I do appreciate you doing that. And I'm gonna drive something home. That's a big benefit for you people who are out there. Again, he's not getting paid for this. I'm not getting paid for this. This is a truly of value. There's a lot of value that Jay brings to the table, hence the reason he's here. And so please do look into that. Take a picture of the screenshot. I think it'll make of that screen. I think it'll truly add some value to you, because I've heard so many good things about what Jay brings to the table. I mean, who wouldn't want money for closing on a piece of real estate? Hopefully that real estate's gonna grow in value, et cetera, et cetera. This is a big deal. Thank you very much, Jay, for this.
Oh, well, thank you, Kenner. And yeah, I mean, at this event, I don't know another event like it. I've got private lenders, my personal private lenders, at the event for you to network with. And of course, we talk a lot at the event about how to raise private money. But anyway, I'll give you more details. But then again, as Kenner just said, be sure to take a picture of that slide right there so you don't miss out. So who in the world is Jay Conner, and how am I qualified to talk about private money other than Kenner French told you so?
Yeah.
So anyway, here's how I got involved in private money. So my wife, Carol Joy, and we started investing in single family houses here in Eastern North Carolina all the way back in 2003, that far back. Well, from 2003 until January of 2009, Kenner, the only thing that I knew to do to get my real estate deals funded is go to the local bank, apply for a mortgage, or go to a mortgage company, apply for a mortgage. And the banker always made me pull up my skirt so they could look at my personal assets and get my financial statement, pull my credit score, all that jazz. And so that was institutional money. And, they always had to pull an appraisal. It would take normally about 4 weeks to close and all that kind of stuff. It was traditional funding. Well, that worked out okay for the first 6 years, from 2003 to January 2009. And then in January 2009, I was sitting right here at my desk, and I had 2 houses under contract to fund. So I called up my banker, which I'd done many times for 6 years. I called up my banker. His name was Steve, and Steve and I have a little chit chat. And I told Steve about these 2 houses that I have under contract to close on. And I immediately learned from Steve, just like that, that my line of credit had been closed with no notice to me, mind you. And I said to Steve, I said, Steve, what in the world are you saying that my line of credit's been closed? Why? We've had a great business relationship here for 6 years. I always made my payments on time. My credit score is 800. Why are you shutting down my line of credit? And Steve said, Jay, don't you know there's a global financial crisis going on right now?
Yeah.
I said, no, but you just gave me a financial crisis.
Don't.
I don't have a way to fund these 2 deals. And Steve said, well, Jay, we're not loaning money out to real estate investors anymore. Sorry. So I hung up the phone and I sat here for a moment. And Kenner, I want to share with you and your audience a very powerful question that I asked myself. In fact, the answer to this question that I'm going to share totally changed the trajectory of my real estate investing business. In fact, the answer to this question will help fix any problem that anybody's got going on in their life. By the way, Kenner, these people running around saying, oh, every problem's an opportunity. I want to throw up and be like the Kool-Aid guy that runs into the brick wall on TV. Listen, I didn't have an opportunity. I had a problem. Let's face the fact.
Right.
Now, did that problem become an opportunity? Absolutely. But at that moment in time, I had a problem. Well, here's the question that I asked myself. You know, the power is in asking the right questions. And here's the question I asked myself. I said, Jay, who, and there it is. It's not how, it's who. I said, Jay, who do you know that can help fix your problem? And you know what's funny, Kenner? Immediately, when I asked myself that question, I immediately thought of Jeff Blankenship. Well, who was Jeff Blankenship? A dear friend of mine and Carol Joy's, still to this day, very, very close friends. Well, at the time in January of 2009, Jeff was living in Greensboro, North Carolina, and he was investing in single family houses. So I called up Jeff. I told him what had just happened and the conversation I had with my banker and getting cut off at the bank. And, you know, Jeff said, well, Jay, welcome to the club. And I said, what club is that? I'm not sure I want to be a member of this club. He said, well, this is the club of getting cut off from the bank. He says, my bank cut me off last week. I said, well, Jeff, I said, how are you going to fund your real estate deals? He says, well, have you ever heard of private money? I said, no. He said, have you ever heard of self-directed IRAs?
There you go.
And how individuals can move retirement funds that they have over to a self-directed IRA company with no tax effect, no penalty. And then the interest that we pay them on them funding our deals is either tax-free or tax-deferred to them. I said, Jeff, I don't have a clue what in the world you're talking about. I said, what is private money? He says, well, there's this gentleman down in Jacksonville, Florida, by the name of Ron LeGrand. And I said, well, who's Ron LeGrand? He said, well, I don't know. And I said, well, what's private money? Jeff says, Jay, I told you, I don't know, but Ron LeGrand says we can get a lot of it really, really fast.
That's crazy because I mentioned Ron LeGrand, speaking of you earlier. So this is really cool. Keep going. I like this.
Yeah. So Jeff and I, along with Jeff, I went to my very first real estate investing conference. I'd already been in this business for 6 years. So I went to Ron LeGrand event to learn about private money, not knowing what in the world it was. Well, Kenner, I came back home here to Morehead City. I put my program together, my opportunity that I was going to offer to potential private lenders. And, you know, I was blessed and able to raise $2,150,000 in less than 90 days of starting to share this private money opportunity with people in my own network. So let's stop right here. I want to make a point. People ask me all the time, real estate investors that haven't raised any private money or much, they'll say, Jay, what's the first thing that I need to do in order to start raising private money? And here's the answer. Do exactly what I did, and that is own the real estate between your ears. Now, what in the world do I mean by that? Here's what I mean by owning the real estate between your ears. Take on the mindset of having a servant's heart and put on your teacher hat. Put on your teacher hat. Now, my teacher hat says private money teacher. Now, what in the world does this mean and where am I coming from? The first thing I did, other than getting the right mindset, is I put my program together as to my opportunity. And I was first going to share, and I did first share my private money opportunity to my own connections, people that I go to church with, people that are in my cell phone, and etc. So I want to stop right here, slow down. I want everybody to understand exactly where I'm coming from right here and what I'm saying.
Mhm.
You see, the traditional way to borrow money, which is what I did for the first 6 years in this business, the traditional way to borrow money is to go to the local bank or to a mortgage lender or to a hard money lender and apply and get your credit pulled.
Mhm.
And the traditional way to borrow money is the lender makes the rules. That's the traditional way. The traditional thinking that 99.99999% of people walking around is that he or she who has the money makes the rules, right?
Mhm.
That's what we've been conditioned to think all these years. The traditional way to borrow money is the lender is the underwriter. They put the terms together. They decide what the interest rate is. They decide the frequency of payments. They decide the maximum loan to value. Well, here's where we got to stop right here. Because what I did is I put together this way of raising private money that is 180 degrees different, opposite direction from the traditional way to borrowing money. And here's what I mean by that. First of all, this way of raising private money, there are no applications. You're already approved.
And there's
You,
magic in that. There's total magic in that because who don't, I mean, obviously, if you have a chunk of money and you're a bank or whatever, you want to make sure that your money's well taken care of. But if you're truly making it the way you are, making it so you're already approved, that's 90% of the battle.
you're already approved. You are your own underwriter. And you are going to set the interest rate. You're going to set the maximum loan to value. And you know what I say? Just sort of duplicate what I offer and the program that I've put together at the upcoming live event, the Private Money Conference. I'm going to spend an entire session the morning of the first day teaching you exactly what it is for you to offer and to teach to potential private lenders. So that's the first thing that we got to get straight in our mind. No chasing, no begging, no selling, no asking. You're leading with being a teacher and exposing to people in the first category of private lenders. That's your own connections. So what did I do? In fact, I'll share right here. No, I'll hold off for that for later in the presentation. But
I
I'm
like
gonna
a little bonus at the end. I like that. Very cool.
I'll share. I'll wait till a bit later, but I'm going to share with you exactly how did I get my very first $500,000 private lender
Okay.
after putting my program together to share and teach. So this is the main thing to get right here. There's no chasing, no begging. You've got your program put together that you're going to teach and offer to people, and then without asking, you're going to expose them to self-directed IRAs and how that works. So we want to make sure we've got this mind shift different, right, than borrowing traditional money. So who's a private lender? It's an individual human being just like you or me or Kenner that loans money to real estate investors from either their investment capital and or their retirement accounts. In fact, there's other areas where they can get money to loan you money on your real estate deals that I'll share with you here in a few minutes. So private money or private lending is simply a one-on-one transaction with no middle person involved. You see, that's why in this world of private money, you never pay origination fees. You never pay points because there's no middle person involved. So I'm not talking in this world of private money. I'm not talking about doing business with a joint venture partner. You know, the old business model is, okay, somebody puts up the money, then we as the real estate investor, we do the work, we, do our marketing, we negotiate deals. And then at the end of that deal, you're sharing the profits. That is not this world.
Okay.
The private lender, write this down if you're taking notes. The private lender is the bank. Okay. It's your land trust, it's your LLC, whatever entity that you are buying real estate, you are the owner of the property. The private lender has no percentage ownership or whatever. So we're going to protect the private lender the same way that a bank or a mortgage company or a hard money lender will be protected. And I'm going to show you here a little bit later on here in the next few minutes how we actually protect our private lenders. We're not talking hard money here, as I mentioned when we started out. So what are some of the big differences between hard money and private money? Well, two big differences we've already said. You're not borrowing institutional money. You're doing business directly with another individual or individuals. You can have more than one private lender funding the same real estate deal. Secondly, I already mentioned, big difference. Hard money lender makes the rules. They set the terms. They're the underwriter. We, in this way of doing business, you are your own underwriter. You are already approved. So here's some of the big differences as far as money goes. Hard money lender is going to charge right now anywhere from 12% to 14%, depending on your experience. Private money, 8%, no points. 8%. No
That's on an ongoing basis, meaning pretty much whenever we're talking about it's going to be 8%?
Yes, Kenner, from January of 2009 until right now here today, I've been paying my private lenders 8%. And one question that I get commonly, Kenner, is people will say, Jay, how in the world are you still paying your private lenders 8% when the market rates have gone up tremendously, particularly, the past 5 years? Well, here's the answer. Remember, who makes the rules? The market has got nothing to do with how much we're paying our private lenders. So first of all, we make the rules. We're offering the opportunity. But secondly, what we do is we compare what we're paying in private lender interest, 8%, to what an individual can get in a certificate of deposit or savings account at the local bank.
Okay.
So, savings accounts right now are less than 1%. You can get a 7-month certificate of deposit for 3%. Well, 8% is a whole lot more money than 3%, right? So interest rate is very, very different. Here's another big difference. The length of the note. In this world of private money, there's no hurry to pay the loan back. A hard money lender, the typical length of the note is either going to be 6 months or 9 months, maybe sometimes 12 months. Well, my notes with my private lenders are either 2 years or 5 years. Now, I'm typically not going to use the money that long on a deal, but there's no hurry to pay the money back in this world of private money. Here's a huge difference. I'm sorry, Kenner.
No, I mean, I like this. This is exactly what I was looking for. I think this is helpful for me as a real estate person. I mean, you're outlining so many things that add value to me. I mean, this is exactly what I was hoping for.
Absolutely. Another big difference between hard money and private money is what we call the advance. The advance. Well, what do I mean by the advance? The advance is how much money will the lender, regardless of who the lender is, how much money will the lender advance to you at closing when you purchase the property? Well, hard money lenders are going to typically advance to you somewhere between 65% and 80% of the purchase price. not of the after repaired value of the purchase price, regardless of how good the deal is. Which means on average, when you're borrowing hard money or borrowing any kind of institutional money, on average, you're going to have to bring 20% down payment to the closing. Guess what? Here in the world of private money, you're going to get 100% of your purchase price. If there's renovation or rehab involved, you're going to get 100% of the renovation cost up front when you close and purchase. And you should be able to pull out additional equity if you want to. Now, here's the writer downer, and I'm going to give you the math so you can follow this in just a second.
Okay.
Here's the writer downer. When you're paying all cash, purchasing a single family house, when you're paying all cash with private money, if you cannot bring home a big check when you purchase the property, you are paying too much for the property. Period. Now, let me give you an example to write down.
I was just about to, can you provide an example? Because it sounds like it's really, really good.
Oh, in fact, it sounds like it's too good to be true, is what it sounds like. So let me give you the facts. So I hope you're taking notes. So I want you to write this down. Let's say that there is a single family house. I'm going to use small numbers because it'll be easy to follow.
Okay.
Let's say you got an after repaired value house of $200,000. So that's the after repaired value. Now, I'm going to buy that house when there's like a $30,000 rehab to it. I'm going to buy that house all day long for no more than 50% of the after repaired value. So I'm going to buy that house for $100,000. So write down after repaired value, $200,000. Purchase price, $100,000 is your purchase price. Now here's where the magic comes. You can borrow, if you do it the way I do, you can borrow up to 75% of the after repaired value. I didn't say 75% of purchase price. 75% of the after repaired value, where the after repaired value is $200,000, which means you can borrow $150,000 when you purchase the property. So watch this. You're closing on the property. You have your private money lender wire $150,000 to the real estate attorney's trust account.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to buy it for $100,000. So you got $100,000 of that $150,000 going to the seller of the property. Well, watch. That leaves a $50,000 excess cash to close. So in this example, you're going to bring home a $50,000 check minus a little bit of closing cost when you buy that property. Now, of course, in this example, you're going to use the majority of that $50,000 for the renovation that you're going to do to the property. You'll still have some money left over that you can use for carrying costs and et cetera. So that's the magic right there of always bringing home a big check when you buy. Now, what's another big difference between hard money and private money? Extension fees. Well, I've got a friend that's a hard money lender. And if you don't cash out by the time the note comes due within 9 months, they will extend your note for another 90 days, but they're going to charge another 3%, which is called 12% money annualized. Right. So there's extension fees with the hard money lenders, but in the world of private money, there's never any extension fees. So hey, Kenner, I got 20 reasons why I love private money. I'll cover more of those here in just a moment, but I just wanted to make these distinctions, the big distinctions between hard money and private money. Does that make sense, Kenner?
Yeah, it does. I totally see where you're going with that.
Perfect. So a private lender is not any kind of institutional money. It's not a bank, right? And what does this way of using private money work for? Well, private money works for any kind of real estate, works for single family homes, works for self-storage, works for land, works for commercial, but you're going to structure the deals differently. Now, in my world of using private money, I've used private money solely for single family homes, right? But it works for commercial properties as well. If you're using private money for commercial properties, what you will be doing is raising money for a fund. But in this world of private money for single family homes, we're not raising money. You're not raising money for a fund. You are raising money. Write this down. You are raising money for an asset-backed debt. You're raising money for an asset-backed debt, which means we're going to give our private lenders either a mortgage or a deed of trust to collateralize the promissory note. That's why the Security Exchange Commission does not regulate what we do on raising private money. If you're raising private money for a fund, then you're going to get an SEC attorney to draw up a private placement memorandum, et cetera. So as a result, not only is the SEC not regulating asset-backed debt, but you are not, you don't have your hands tied to where you can only borrow money from accredited investors. In this world of raising private money, you can raise private money from anybody. In fact, I've had 2 minor children as private lenders that inherited in an inheritance from their grandparent. And so anybody can be a private lender. So
let me stop you there for one moment. So a lot of the people who are watching and listening to this are commercial property investors. We have a lot of people who are in that camp, and I think that this is unique. A lot of the things you're talking about not only are unique for single family homes, but they're also very unique in the commercial real estate space. So it's worth it. If you guys are out there and you're looking for money for real estate, private money, and Jay's sourcing of it, it does make sense in a lot of ways.
absolutely. If you're looking for money for commercial properties, all this is the same money. It's all the same money. We raise it the same way. You'll raise it the same way. Again, just the deal is structured differently. So this is not raising money for a fund when you're talking about single family houses. You are going to raise money for a fund in commercial. So every deal stands on its own. You got a property, then you have one or multiple lenders that are being secured by that property. So each private lender's loan is secured by the individual property. Now, I promised you when I started out this presentation that I was going to share with you 3 different categories of where you find private money, and here they are. You've got what we call your existing warm market. Those are your own connections.
Mm-hmm.
And I know there's a direct correlation between the quality of your network and the quantity of your net worth, if you will. So here's the 3 categories as to where you find private money. Number 1, your own connections that you've already got. Number 2, I call it your expanded warm market. Well, if you're really wanting to scale your business, I mean, I've got 47 private lenders right now. You don't need 47 private lenders to start out. You just need 1 or 2 to start out. But if you're wanting to scale your business, then you're going to need to grow your network, because you will sooner or later run out of your current connections. Now, at the upcoming Private Money Conference, I spent an entire 90-minute session teaching you how to almost overnight blow up and expand your warm market and your connections. The third category of where you find private money are existing private lenders. These are individuals that are already loaning money out to real estate investors. The question is, where do you find those people? Well, don't go anywhere. Stay tuned. I'm going to pull the curtain back for you on that in just a moment. Now, I mentioned a few minutes ago, Kenner, I got 20 reasons why I love private money and why it will help you scale your business and grow your business so quickly. I'm not going to share all 20 reasons, but I'm going to share the big ones right now. And these are in no particular order of priority, but here's reasons why you're going to love private money. Number 1, no credit check. Your credit score has got absolutely nothing to do with how much private money you can get. Mm-hmm. Secondly, no income verification. It doesn't matter if you're self-employed and you're an entrepreneur and you can't verify 1 dime of income on your tax return. It doesn't matter. Mm-hmm. Your income verification has got nothing to do whatsoever with how much private money you can use. Thirdly, as we already talked about, no points, no origination fees. I've never paid any points, never paid any origination fees. to my private lenders. Fourthly, no appraisals. Well, that should raise your eyebrows right there. No appraisals. You know, when I was borrowing money from institutions and banks and mortgage companies, there was always an appraisal. You know, Kenner, in all these years, I've now rehabbed and flipped over 500 houses since using private money. And, you know, not one time have I had any of my private lenders say, Jay, I want to look at that appraisal before I fund your deal. Appraisals have nothing to do with it. I've already talked about multiple checks, but let me pull the curtain back here, Kenner, and share where are all the different times you're going to receive a check when you use private money. Well,
yeah.
first check when you buy. I already talked about that. And if you can't bring home a big check and you're using all cash to purchase the property, you shouldn't do the deal. I'm talking in the context of a single family house or a duplex, triplex, or quadplex. Now, the second check you can get, if you're selling that house on lease purchase or rent to own, you can collect a large non-refundable lease option deposit, $10,000, $20,000, if you're cashing out that. I mean, if you're selling it that way. And then, of course, you'll get another check when you sell the property, cash out, and that would be the difference between what you sell it for and what you still owe your private lender. I already mentioned this, why I love private money. We make the rules. We are our own underwriters. Instead of applying for a mortgage, you are offering the opportunity in the mortgage. We set the interest rate, the length of the note, maximum loan to value, which of course is not the purchase price, but to the after repaired value. And here's some big ones right here now, folks. There's no limit to the number of private lenders you can have. No limit.
You mean on one deal, or what do you mean? Help me to understand that. I might like that.
Sure. Well, there's no limit to in either case. So there's no limit to the number of private lenders you can have doing multiple deals, right? But you can also have more than one or two private lenders funding the same deal. And here, but in the context of single family houses, I want you to write this down. There's this thing called total loan to value. Total loan to value. So, you know, we already mentioned part of our program that we offer to our private lenders is we're not going to borrow more than 75% of the after repaired value. Well, that could be split between, for example, between two different private lenders. You can have one private lender that's loaning $100,000. You can have another private lender in second position or junior lien that's loaning $50,000. Well, you want to add both of those up, 100,000 from the first lender, 50,000 from the second lender, and divide that by the after repaired value. So you see in that example, we're still not going to exceed 75% total loan to value to the after repaired value. Does that make sense, Kenner?
Yeah. Sorry, I'm writing the notes down, but yeah.
Perfect. So there's no limit. You know, when I was borrowing money from the banks and mortgage companies, there was a limit to the amount of private money that I could borrow. And here's another big one. Your private lenders do not have to be in the same state where you are doing your real estate. I mean, I've got private lenders in 10 different states. You can borrow across state lines. So why is that? The reason you can borrow across state lines is because the commissioner of banks is not regulating us doing business. We're doing business one-on-one, just in between us and other individuals. And I mentioned this already. You are not limited to only borrowing from accredited investors. Now, you know what's funny about this, Kenner? As I mentioned, I got 47 private lenders that are loaning money to us on our real estate deals. And probably of those 47 private lenders, probably about 10 of them are accredited investors. But you know what's funny, Kenner? They don't even know they are accredited investors because they don't even know what that is.
Yeah.
You see, because not one of my 47 private lenders ever knew or heard of private money or self-directed IRAs until I put on my teacher hat and I started exposing them to this world. So why else do I love private money? You can close deals so fast. I mean, I'm making all of my offers, Kenner, that I on single family houses that I can close within 7 days. And as a result of that, I get more offers accepted.
Yeah.
When I was borrowing money from institutions, well, there's no way I could close that fast. I'm also able to do an unlimited number of deals with private lenders. I mean, I have never missed out on a deal for not having the funding ever since I started using private money. Here's another big one. Here's another rider downer in this world of private money. No personal guarantees whatsoever. And when I was borrowing money from institutions, I had to be a guarantor in addition to the asset backing it. But here's something that you may not have heard of if you're tuning in here to this presentation. Did you know that when you have to provide a financial statement to any institution, you're only required to disclose personally guaranteed debt? Well, check this out. When you're using private money like this, there are no personal guarantees. So for all your private money debt, you do not have to disclose that on your financial statement because it's not personally guaranteed debt. So the question is, you think that'll make your financial statement look a little bit better? Absolutely. Hey, Kenner, I love this next one. If you're going to be doing like a flip on a single family house and you're only going to be in the deal maybe 6 months or 9 months or something like that, well, guess what? You don't even have to make any monthly payments to your private lender. You can just let the interest accrue and cash them out and pay their accrued interest when you cash out on that deal. Now, stop and think about the cash flow on that deal. You go to the closing table, you purchase the property, you bring home a big check, and you make no monthly payments. Do you think that's going to change your cash flow situation? One question I get a lot of times, Kenner, is real estate investors, they'll say, Jay, what's the quickest way to get a lot of cash in my checking account? And I say private money, because you're always going to bring home a big check when you do the deal. Now, when are you going to use private money? Well, you don't need private money if all you're doing is wholesaling houses. You don't need private money then. You're going to use private money when the seller, and I don't care who or what the seller is, institution or a for sale by owner, you're going to use private money when the seller requires all the cash. So bank-owned property, short sales, auctions. And over these years, Kenner, I have reviewed thousands of property lead sheets from for sale by owners. And what I've discovered is that only 13% of for sale by owners will sell to me creatively, such as subject to the existing note, seller financing, whatever. What do the other 87% require? All the cash, right? So again, as I said, private money is not just for renovation projects. Private money is for when the seller requires all the cash. Now, I went over a lot of reasons why we want to do business with private lenders, but here's 4 big reasons why private lenders absolutely love to do business with us. First of all, their investment with us is secure and safe. We are not borrowing unsecured money. We're going to secure the promissory note with either a mortgage or deed of trust, collateralize that note, and their investment with us is safe because we're not going to borrow more than 75% of the after repaired value, therefore giving them a nice big 25% equity cushion. Secondly, they're going to earn a whole lot more money than they can in the local certificate of deposit at the local bank. Thirdly, if we're making monthly payments, which sometimes we do, we've got elderly private lenders that need the monthly income to live off of. Well, we make interest-only payments, which makes them more money than principal and interest, because if we're making principal and interest payments, we're paying down the principal loan amount and they don't have the full amount invested. It's a win for us as the borrower because interest-only payments are smaller on cash flow. And we have in the program an opportunity, a way for the private lenders to get their principal loan back early in case they have an emergency. Now, what comes first, the deal or the money? In other words, what should you focus on? Now, Kenner, I'm going to take a little risk right here. I'm going to take a little risk.
Mhm.
I'm going to ask you a question.
Okay.
And here's the question. Have you ever heard the guru on stage or an educator on stage say something to this effect? Oh, just get the deal under contract. The money will show up. You ever heard that?
Of course I have. Yes, I have. The answer to that is yes.
Or have you ever heard them say something like, oh, just get the deal under contract because money finds good deals? You ever heard that?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Kenner, that makes me want to throw up. That's the most stupid thing I ever heard in my life. It's like,
Yeah.
where is the money going to show up? Is it going to like rain out of clouds or whatever? That philosophy makes absolutely, I mean, who wants to be stressed out with a contract and you have no idea where the funding's going to come from? Here's what I do and here's what I have done. Look, there's always going to be deals. There's always going to be deals. Now, if you're raising money for a fund, for a commercial project, then that's a different conversation. You're obviously you're raising money for that particular project. That's a large project, right? But in the world of single family houses, you get the money lined up first. And just think about it. How many more offers are you going to make when you got money burning a hole in your pocket? Now, where are you going to get the money from? You got the warm market, people you've already got an association with. I call it the cold market. Those are existing private lenders. And so I'm going to share right now the 5 steps, Kenner, as to how to get private money for your deals from your warm market. And I'm going to go into detail into these at the upcoming Private Money Conference. Here's step number 1, make your list. Actually, I'm going to have you go through a little exercise at the upcoming Private Money Conference. And within less than 10 minutes, you're going to have identified what I call your top 44 potential private lenders from your own contacts. I'm telling you, you could have millions of dollars in private money sitting right in your contact list. That's step number 1, make your list. Now, step number 2 is what I call the opening conversation script. Now, there's 2 different methods to starting a conversation with a potential private lender. Now, due to the lack of time here on this presentation, I'm just going to mention them to you. But at the upcoming Private Money Conference, I'm going to give you the scripting of exactly what to say to a potential private lender that's in your own contacts. I'm going to teach you at the upcoming conference what I call the direct method, which employs what I call the magic question. And then I'm also going to teach you what I call the indirect method of raising private money without asking for money. I'm actually going to share with you the story of the very first $500,000. And both of these methods, neither one of them has anything to do with asking for money. Now, step number 3 on getting private money from your own warm market is what's called the stress-free investing audio. Here's what this is in a nutshell. When I first started raising private money, all the way back in 2009, I recorded a 16-minute audio that I called Stress-Free Investing. And this was back in the day, Kenner, when we actually had CDs. Everybody remembers what a CD was, right?
Oh, that's old school right there, buddy.
So we would hand out CDs called Stress-Free Investing. Well, now we no longer use CDs. I actually give my community members 1,000 business cards with a dedicated QR code that people can hand out while they're networking. They can actually take their dedicated QR code and put it as part of their email signature. Well, I have recorded this audio, Kenner, for hundreds of my community members that want to raise private money. And just quickly, for the sake of this presentation, the purpose of this audio is to introduce and expose people in your own connections, on your email list, they're in your cell phone, as to what private money is, but it doesn't teach the opportunity. It just raises those questions. So step number 3 actually leads to step number 4. And step number 4 is what we call the one-on-one appointment, or where we're actually teaching the program, the opportunity. Now, at the upcoming Private Money Conference, You're going to actually see the actual PowerPoint presentation that I use and that my community members use to raise private money. You're going to learn in this presentation actually what you teach, the interest rate, how they can get their money back in case of an emergency, and et cetera. At the upcoming Private Money Conference, we're actually going to have a whole session on private money luncheons. How I raised $969,000 at one private money luncheon. And so, this step number 4, whether you're doing it just one-on-one with an individual potential private lender, or you're doing it in a group presentation, you're going to see this presentation at the upcoming event. Now, how can you get the word out about the opportunity of your connections getting, learning you private money? Well, it can be one-on-one, it can be virtual, it can be on a Zoom, it can be in groups, and as I just said, it can be in the form of private lender luncheons. It can be webinars. Now, step number 5 in the warm market is where we get what's called a verbal pledge from your private lender. There's no papers to sign. They simply tell you how much money they've got to work with. And if they've got retirement funds, then you'll introduce them to the self-directed IRA rep that I'm going to put you in contact with at the upcoming event. Now, I don't have time here in this presentation to go over the 5 steps as to how to raise private money from existing private lenders and how to find these private lenders, but I'm going to cover all 5 steps at the upcoming Private Money Conference as to how you are able to locate these existing private lenders right in your own backyard. First things first, you want to have the right mindset. No selling, no begging, no persuading. You want to be a teacher, right? And you want to lead with a servant's heart. Here's a writer downer. This is so important.
Okay.
This is an actionable item. Establish a relationship with a self-directed IRA representative. Here's why. You see, I mentioned earlier, I got 47 private lenders that are funding our deals. Over half, Kenner, over half of my 47 private lenders are using their retirement funds to fund our deals. So the reason it's so important to have this relationship in place is so that when you're talking with a potential private lender and you learn that they have retirement funds and they're not happy with those retirement funds, well, you can introduce them to the self-directed IRA representative that you know that will help them move their funds over to then fund your deals. So at the upcoming Private Money Conference, at the event, I've got one big session that's titled How to Get Your Deals Funded with Self-Directed IRAs. And I'm going to be introducing you to the gentleman that's been my go-to for 7 years now. I get my deals funded in 3 days when I'm using the self-directed IRA people that have accounts. This is going to be a powerful session, and I'll get you connected with this individual at the Private Money Conference. First things first, you got to know the opportunity that you're sharing. Never talk about your opportunity for your private money lenders and have a deal in the initial conversation. Write this down. This is so important. Desperation has got a smell to it. Desperation has got a smell to it. If you've got a deal under contract that you need funded and you're talking about the private money opportunity, you already sound desperate. So the details of exactly what to teach to your new potential private lenders, I'm going to cover that all at the upcoming event in the first day, first session. Now, I'm going to briefly mention this before we start wrapping up, and I'm going to give you all that QR code again to the upcoming Private Money Conference. And of course, Kenner, any questions that you have, I'll have plenty of time for that. So 30,000 foot view, I'm going to drill down on this at the upcoming event. Where can private lenders get money to fund your deals? Well, obviously, if they've got any kind of investment capital in the local bank, they can use that. But how about this here? How about self-directed? How about retirement funds, as I just mentioned? I'm going to teach you the upcoming live event. And by the way, this is an in-person event. I'm going to teach you the upcoming event how private lenders can actually leverage home equity lines and get more money to loan to you. That's called arbitrage. I'm also going to teach you at the upcoming event how, if they have stocks or mutual funds and they don't want to sell their stocks, how they can leverage portfolio revolving accounts and get more money for you for your deals. I'm also going to teach you, and I don't have it here on the slide, I'm going to teach you how your private lenders can use a whole life insurance policy to leverage and get you even more money to fund your deals. All that at the upcoming event. Now, of course, all the closings that you do in real estate, you're going to use your real estate attorney or closing agent to do the closings. They'll prepare all the paperwork. And of course, you're going to take care of the closing costs to the attorney. No fees or commissions are charged to your private lenders. And of course, no disbursement of funds until after you close the deal and secure them. Now, the insurance policy, we're going to name the private lender, you will, on the insurance policy as a mortgagee. That gives them another layer of protection. And you're going to name your private lender as an additional insured on title policies to protect them as well. You'll use larger amounts of money for purchasing properties, smaller amounts for rehabbing, of course. Here are the documents. Now, these are the documents you use for single family houses. You're going to have a promissory note that lays out the terms. You'll have a deed of trust or mortgage that collateralizes the note, and then the insurance policy. You'll name your private lender as the mortgagee on the insurance policy, and you'll name your private lender on the title policy as an additional insured in case there's any title issues down the road. Well, as I said, one more time, Kenner, here is the big event. The Private Money Conference, October 8th, 9th, and 10th, right here in Atlantic Beach, North Carolina. That QR code will take you to the live event page to give you all the highlights as to what's happening at the live event. Be sure and click on 2 or 3 of those attendee reviews. I mean, we got Carly Manino there on the website. They got $900,000 with one phone call right after the event. You'll see Jonathan Broyles on there that right after the event got $780,000 in private money. And so it's a 3-day event. We actually have a rehab renovation bus tour where we actually go out in the field, look at properties. At the event, you're going to meet my entire dream team and how we work together and how you can duplicate the business. You're going to meet my real estate attorney, Julie Wickheiser, how we work together. You're going to meet my realtor that's been my realtor for 20 years. You're going to meet Beth Garner. She's been our interior designer for 20 years on all these properties. You're going to meet my project manager and how we work together. And it's because, and you're going to meet my general contractors as well and how we work together. It's because of this team that I'm able to work in this business less than 10 hours per week and get to enjoy the 7-figure income every year. There's the QR code. The URL, of course, is go.jconnor.com/vast. You get to come to this $2,997 event for only a $97 registration fee. I can't wait to be meeting you at this event that's coming up right around the corner. Kenner, I'm going to turn it back to you for any questions or things that we want to clarify.
Yeah, this has been helpful. This really has been helpful. Again, I've said it a few times. I know people who've used you. You know what you're talking about. It's not just me, it's other people. But so let me ask a few questions about kind of the overall, well, just you over. So it seems as though you're going to be opening up basically the curtain to everything you've done over these many years as far as real estate investing goes. And more importantly, it's the private money. Your magic potion is the private money, access to private money, actually access to all the things that you have experienced over these years. But private money, give me one more example of one person who's come to you, who's been whatever, down and out, they're worth whatever, $1,000. And because you've supplied your, looking behind the curtain, and now they're worth X, some huge amount of money. Give me one other example, just so I can put everything in perspective.
Sure. Well, when you ask that question, I think of Crystal Baker. Crystal came to this live event, and she was already making multiple 6 figures, up in the 6 figures of income per year. She was an occupational therapist, and she oversaw 5 or maybe 6 clinics. She was working almost 80 hours a week, 2 small children, and she promised herself that she would never take her children to fast food. And so she found herself one night going through the fast food line, and she had the big wake up call that she had to change something that was going on. So she found her way to the Private Money Conference. And from that Private Money Conference, this 3-day live event that I'm talking about, within 9 months of coming to the event, she had totally retired, gave up a multiple 6-figure income, totally retired because she was working all the time, and retired from that. She now has over $4 million in private money that she uses on various projects that she's got going on. She began to start homeschooling her children, and because of coming to this event, it completely changed her life. I know you asked for one, Kenner, but I'm also thinking of Eric and Erica Carmadale that live in Poplarville, Mississippi. They came as a couple to this event, and he was working for the railroad. Eric had to travel 1 hour each way, twice a day, to work for the railroad. In 7 months from coming to this event, he retired and quit the railroad, went into full-time real estate investing, and has over $3 million now, about $3.5 million in private money that they use on different projects. And you get to reuse this private money over and over and over again without having to go out and continue to raise more money. So, we just have so many success stories of people that have come to this live event, and it literally has changed their life and their financial situation and their personal level of happiness and joy forever.
Yeah, that's actually exactly what I was looking for. And thank you. I know it's a big benefit that you're supplying such a discount to our people. I really do appreciate that, because I believe in what you're doing. I think it's one of the best ways to increase net worth, and to do it in such a way where you're not having to ask for money. You're not having to ask for, money from a bank. I think you're truly adding value. So I really do appreciate it. I'm going to do a real quick reset right as we're getting ready to close the doors on this one. Once again, I'm Kenneth French with VastSolutionsGroup.com. We're with Jay Conner, who's helping us to help investors, real estate investors, to, increase their net worth without having to ask for money, which I think that's a very, very powerful thing. So just kind of in closing, Jay, any other thoughts you have? I have a bunch of other questions, by the way, but I'm going to reserve them for the event, October 8th through the 10th. I'm going to be there, by the way, in Atlantic Beach, North Carolina. Any other closing thoughts you have? Otherwise, we'll just be meeting, in North Carolina later in the fall.
Well, my closing thought would be, because you are in Kenner French's community and Kenner's coming to the event, well, there's the icing on the cake right there. Get to this event because you're going to be hanging around Kenner at the event as well. Again, Kenner, thank you so much for inviting me to come along to share this overview of what this world of private money is all about. And I can't wait to meet you. For those of you that are watching and listening to this presentation, can't wait to meet you at the live event, October 8th, 9th, and 10th. By the way, the hotel that we have it at is right here, oceanfront, right on the water. When you register for this event, you'll have an opportunity to upgrade to VIP. It's not required, but if you upgrade to VIP, then we're going to be treating you down at the private beach club, the Dunes Club, on Thursday evening of this event, and you'll have even more opportunity to network with more private lenders. God bless all of y'all. Can't wait to see you in person at the upcoming Private Money Conference. Thank you, Ken.
Once again, he's Jay Conner. He's the money man. You like that? The money man. I'm Kenneth French, VastSolutionsGroup.com. We'll be seeing you in North Carolina, October 8th through the 10th. Thanks, everybody.
Are you feeling inspired by the knowledge you gained in this episode? Then head over to jconner.com/moneyguide. That's jconner.com/moneyguide and download your free guide that shares 7 reasons why private money will skyrocket your real estate investing business right now. Again, that's jconner.com/moneyguide to get your free guide. We'll see you next time on Raising Private Money with Jay